Homophobia in the Church, Part 3. This time we're going to be asking the question, is political conservatism to blame for the homophobia in the church? Because certainly, at least in the West, there's a pretty strong correlation between the church and political conservatism, and there is a correlation between political conservatism and homophobia. But is that the root of the problem? To get to this answer, we need to ask Alberta's Premier, Danielle Smith. Hey Danielle Smith, I was just wondering if there was a correlation between political conservatism and homophobia. Oh, sorry, what's that? Oh, okay, I see you got something going on here. I'll talk to you later. Yeah, so that's the leader of our province. Anyway, check this out. So in 2005, Canada legalized same-sex marriage, which made us the first country outside of Europe to do so. And unsurprisingly, the Liberal Party was in power, and so you can see that up at the top here. So the Liberal cabinet, that's kind of the main people within the Liberal Party, the people who hold offices above and beyond just being members of Parliament, and all of them voted to legalize same-sex marriage. But then beneath that, you can see that the Liberal backbench, so these are the rest of the MPs who don't hold offices over and above being MPs, and you can see that almost 40% of them actually voted against this bill. And then to no one's surprise, almost 100% of the Conservatives voted against it. But what is kind of surprising is down here, NDP, which is of Canada's main parties, that's our farthest left party, and there actually is one vote against legalizing same-sex marriage. And so the point that I'm trying to make is, while there is a strong correlation between political conservatism and homophobia, that's obviously not the core of the problem, because there are liberals and even some farther left who voted against legalizing same-sex marriage in Canada. To get to the bottom of this, we're going to have to look at Chechnya, which is a territory within Russia that has its own president, and it's this guy. His name is Ramzan Kadyrov. And if you've ever watched Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, you might have heard a story about him, but let's talk about it a little bit here. So here's a picture of Ramzan Kadyrov working out, and here he is working out, and here he is getting ready to work out. What a fun guy with a wide range of diverse interests. And here's Ramzan Kadyrov with his favorite person in the world. Okay, here's his actual favorite person in the world, but back to the other guy. I forget this guy's name, but he's a very prominent mixed martial arts fighter, and he comes from Chechnya. And if you know anything about Ramzan Kadyrov, you know that he loves MMA and UFC. So why are we talking about Chechnya? Good question. I'm glad you asked. In 2017, and then again at the end of 2018, Chechnya had what have now been referred to as anti-gay purges. This is where government officials went around and rounded up everyone that they knew to be gay and detained them, tortured them, and in a handful of cases, killed them. And one of the only reasons we know about this is because this guy, I believe his name is Amin Zabrilov, I might be pronouncing that wrong, but through the assistance of the Russian LGBT network and the Canadian Railroad, he was able to escape and move to Canada, where eventually he was able to tell his story. Which, even though he was relatively safe living in Canada, him telling his story took a tremendous amount of bravery, because if you dive deep into this story, you'll find that this is a pretty direct criticism of Putin himself, not just Kadyrov. So later in an interview, Kadyrov was asked about these purges, and his response was that Chechnya has no gay people in it. They couldn't do purges because gay people don't exist in Chechnya. And so then later in another interview, this guy, who's the head of police in Chechnya, was being interviewed by this guy, who's a reporter from the UK, and he's openly gay, and this guy asked him what he thought about him being openly gay, and this guy said, "That's fine, you're not Chechnyan. You're allowed to be openly gay. It brings shame on your country, not mine." And so you might be wondering, is it Chechnyan pride that has made Chechnya so homophobic? And so then is it nationalism that makes the church homophobic? The church definitely struggles with nationalism and has since they became the official religion of the Roman Empire. And so unfortunately, I think the answer is no. I definitely think nationalism and xenophobia influence it, and they create problems for sure. But if you've been paying attention between this video and the last two, especially this video, you may have already picked up on what I think the answer is. But since this video is very long and I still have a lot more to say to kind of build my argument, we're going to do one more video in this series, and then we're back to the main event of me getting kicked out of my church.